I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, is a strong economy worth environmental risks?
They should take care of the planet, not their wallet.
There are risks that we need to take.
What are the needs now versus what are the needs of the future?
I think Canada needs to do a better job.
But first, Canada and the U.S. do have a unique relationship, which is defined by our shared geography, shared values, and what our government calls multi-layered economic ties. But as of late, those ties seem to be coming undone. The U.S. has proposed a tax credit on American-made electric vehicles, which could seriously hurt the Canadian automotive industry, a big part of our economic sector. We're also facing our tariffs being doubled on softwood lumber. So, what direction should Canada take when negotiating with our neighbors to the south? Our question.
What approach should Canada take with the Biden administration?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's an easy solution. I think maybe kind of stand our ground and remind them that we are Canada and we're strong and we're here and we have important views.
I don't know, we should buy Canadian. I'm not an NDP and I never would be, but Jagmeet Singh had a good point when he said we should be buying Canadian steel. It's like, why don't we bring stuff back to Canada? You know, we don't need to depend on America. I think we have enough stuff going on here.
I'd say go carefully with Biden. We don't know him, but he's a lot better than Trump for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of deals I don't understand that are made for economic reasons, but be careful with that, I'd say. Yeah, we don't know much what's going to happen next, and it's not Obama, so.
We should just stay diplomatic and try to have a good relationship with them to pursue of course, economic interests, but also some other things, maybe just helping each other out with poverty issues or the environment or making something together to stop pollution, I don't know.
I don't know, that's up to the Prime Minister. I should act in the national interests, try and build strong relationships. I mean, that's our strongest partners. So, and a very important partner, so tread carefully.
I think we have a good relationship right now. I think we could maybe step it up a little, kind of show some muscle towards them, we are a strong country. I do believe that we do need to show some force towards them for sure.
Biden was Obama's vice president, but it's a different time. It's post-COVID. I think we might actually have to be a bit more aggressive and stand our ground a bit more, especially when it comes to border closures. You talk about softwood lumber, that's constantly in the news. I think we might need to take a bit of a more aggressive approach. Obviously one where we want to keep our partnership and keep that, that friendly camaraderie kind of thing, because we are so close to one another and we do deal with each other so often, whether it's trade, migration. But I think we might have to be a bit more aggressive.
Well, the first thing is don't assume that just because they're Democrats, they're in favor of Canada. They're very protectionist, so they are U.S. first, even more than Trump was. So I think we have to be really careful how we negotiate with them. They just introducing a new tax break on electric cars. Again, that's going to have an impact on us. So they're definitely our ally, but we can't assume that they're our friends. So we have to make sure we're there and protecting our own interests first.
I agree with that opinion. I think we learned a lot in the Trump administration in terms of trying to negotiate fairly for Canada and finding the best way to do it. I think it becomes more and more difficult as countries, rightly so, become more protectionist, including Canada in some instances. So it will take us a while to get back to where we can negotiate on more of a North American scale than an individual U.S.-Canadian scale.
I think we need to be heard and felt, and it shouldn't just be kind of two countries, one voice. So I do think that whoever our leader is, that we need to make sure that Canada's interests are heard, and it's not just kind of merged into this one Western view.
I think it's challenging because of the fracture between the political the political parties in the states. This is probably the biggest divide that there's been between Democrats and Republicans. And unfortunately, I see that spilling over into Canada a little bit, where I don't think that has really happened before. And as we were saying before, I think it's obviously a lot influenced by the media. It's that them versus us, that team mentality, which hasn't been before. And I think Donald Trump emphasized that. So I kind of repairing those relationships and being able to work together. And I mean, having the openness of taking the high road and not trying to hold grudges and just trying to work together as the two powers of North America, basically the biggest trade partners in the world. I mean, they need to be able to work together and function cohesively.
Well, I think what's happening right now, I haven't read that much about it, but this whole sort of whatever benefits they're giving to buying American-made cars, it speaks for itself, you know. So we've invested, from what I understand as Canadians, we've invested huge amounts in American companies that all the profits are taking back to the States. So let's protect our own. Like, I'm not saying protectionist, I'm just saying let's be reasonable about where we invest our money, and maybe we do need to create our own industry and everything else if that's the way we're going to be treated.
The previous few administrations have done so much collateral damage to our relationship that it's irreparable. We have to restart from the brand new.
So I think regardless of any situation, there's always room for hope. So I have to remain hopeful that from learning we can always look to do better. I think relationship building, I think, the view is always better from the high road. So we need to kind of look forward at how we can relationship build and how we can benefit all citizens, regardless of being Canadian or American. I think the media sometimes, when that's all that people have access to and they don't have a touchstone in the States, they generalize the population. But there's lots of very good people trying to do very good things in the United States, as there is here. And so I believe that we can build those relationships.
Historically, Canada has had a good standing among developed nations around the globe, but things have changed drastically, and where Canada stands now may have changed for the worse or the better. We took to the streets to ask Canadians what they think about our country's image these days. Our question:
how do you feel Canada is viewed by other nations?
That's a good question. I know some people from around the world, and they all see Canada as being kind of the stereotype as nice people. So I think we're viewed pretty well. We're a pretty diverse country, pretty open, pretty friendly, so I think good.
I think it's viewed very well. I think from my perspective, that's viewed quite well by other countries, that they think we're a fair and democratic country and our people are very happy, basically.
Well, not as well as we once were. I think we probably hit the peak under the Pearson years in terms of global leadership, and I think it's sort of been in decline since then. We still have a place, of course, but I think it's diminished over the last decades.
It's seen as a nice country, but I also think that its reputation's kind of being tarnished by the residential school children and stuff like that.
Well, I know for sure that from where I come from, most people want to come to Canada because they feel it's a developed country. The system seems great, but obviously that might be different from people who currently live in Canada. They might see things differently. So for sure, from where I come from, Canada is a place that everyone will want to live and stay. Where are you from? Nigeria.
I think they see it as like a good place to live, and like compared to other places like the U.S., it's probably like a better living situation here, and what with like the healthcare and everything. And I think other nations see Canada as like a good place.
Actually, as a good place to be. I think more people actually would move to Canada if it wasn't always for certain weather conditions. I think it is viewed as a good place to be.
I don't think we're held in enough esteem as we deserve. And it's, we all don't speak for the Prime Minister. And so I don't think that they should judge our country on our government.
We've traveled quite a bit, and we're just so
sad that, we used to be really, I think, admired in the world for a lot of the humanitarian work we did. I think in the last few years that the world laughs at us, to be honest. I think that, unfortunately, some of the decisions that have been made and some of the things that Trudeau's doing at the UN, I don't think it's really representing Canada. I think he has his own agenda, and it's very upsetting to us.
Oh, yeah, it's a free country and nice people, community are so nice, and people are so generous. That's why I chose this place to stay.
From international friends, I've heard that we're viewed as a very progressive country, and on the other hand, I think some international people view us sort of as like a resource extraction company in a country's trench coat, I guess, maybe?
I would say we can't really escape the shadow of America.
Yeah.
We're just seen as their little brother. We have to tag along in all their affairs.
I feel like it's viewed as this perfect place to live, where it's definitely a lot better for sure, but not as picture perfect as it's made out to be.
It's a pity that we didn't get on the UN Security Council the way we were hoping, but I think our influence in general around the world has perhaps diminished. But opinion is a different thing. I think we're still well thought of.
I mean, we've had a lot of bad press when it comes to political kind of scandals. Whether they're given as much kind of attention as other countries, probably not. I think we're seen as kind of the honest broker still. But there's been a lot of challenges to that reputation recently. So it's really about coming out of that and showing that we're still here, and we can kind of carry our own against Russia. When it comes to Russia, the UK, the US, we're more than just kind of a small power in that.
I think Canada is viewed as being very weak. I think we, and it's probably because we are, but it's knee-jerk reaction to just about everything that happens, and the knee-jerk reaction of our government has been spend money on it, but that doesn't show results.
Oh, I think it's very positive. We're a very egalitarian society. We respect each other generally. There's outliers, of course, but I think that Canada in general is looked upon as kind of an ideal in some ways, and especially from other countries.
As of now, we're still viewed very favorably. I think we're still viewed as peacekeepers. I think we have a nice little Chinese firewall, Chinese wall with the United States, where their politics haven't completely seeped into our politics yet. So I think on the global scale, we're still seen as the nicer ones in North America.
I think Canada is generally viewed favorably. I think we are viewed as a consensus builder, and I think we are respected abroad, although I would dare say since 2015 that may have been diminished.
I think we should be viewed as a strong, supportive country, fair and honest and someplace safe. And right now I think we're going on the opposite spectrum just because of, our censorship and the forced vaccinations and QR codes. It's really sad. we step back instead of forward.
Fairly positively, in my experience. I think people see us as friendly and kind of peaceful, and that's not a bad way to be seen.
In what year did Newfoundland officially change its name to Newfoundland and Labrador? 1951, 1981, or 2001?
1981.
51. 51. I think 81.
I'll go with 1981. B, 1981.
I would say 1981.
2001?
Absolutely correct.
Awesome! I would say give me 5, but...
We'll give an elbow.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your day.
A former colony and dominion of the British Empire, the province of Newfoundland joined Confederation in 1949, led by Premier Joey Smallwood. Despite Labrador constituting 71% of the province's land area, hence the nickname the Big Land, Canada's 10th province was known only as Newfoundland for decades. That all changed on December 6, 2001, when Governor-General Adrian Clarkson proclaimed an amendment to the Constitution officially changing Newfoundland's name to Newfoundland and Labrador.
COVID-19 has showed us how critical a strong economy should be to keep Canadians prosperous and happy. But it's also feared that the developments of industrialized nations could pose a threat to the environmental health of many countries around the world. 2021 has been a challenging year, especially in Western Canada, with record heat waves and fires during the summer and record rainfall and floods during the late fall. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians if they feel prosperity is worth the environmental danger. Our question:
Is a strong economy worth environmental risks?
I do not think it's worth the environmental risk. I think a strong economy in the short term helps people now, but if it's at the detriment of the future environment, I think it's very short-sighted. And I think it's easy to say I want what's best for me and my family now, but if that comes with 50 years from now when we're struggling to keep the earth afloat, no one's going to care that 50 years ago we had a good economy. So I mean, I think there has to be a balance, but we have to think to the future as well.
No, because there's no economy if we don't survive. Like, it's so obvious. If we're all dead, it doesn't matter. And yeah, like, the economy is secondary. That's a sort of construct, and it's, let's look at people's survival and the way people are living and the environment. And do we want to kill everything just to have a so-called economy that we're not going to survive? Like, look at what's happened in BC. It's going to be happening everywhere. So
I think we can look into into renewable resources more. We can invest more money into that. Obviously, it's a massive initial expense, but I think with time and a very long period of time, eventually we'll see benefits from that. But I think there are risks that we need to take, but I think we should be able to mitigate those and make the right decisions so we're not actually just destroying our environment, because it's the only planet we have, right? So
in the end, I think that really nothing is worth destroying our environment for. Definitely not executives, padding their wallets. And we are going to only realize that more and more in the future as we have to spend more and more money to reverse this damage, as we see especially people who are in poverty being affected way more by these changes in climate. And in the end, I just think that it's not a mutually exclusive thing. We don't need to, choose profit or the environment. We can think of strategies that will stimulate the economy while also not destroying the earth for a fast profit.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think there's solutions for the environment to be protected and for the economy to thrive as well. It just needs to be a balance, and there's times where you do need to sacrifice the environment, and there's times where you do need to maybe heed to that guidance as well.
I do not think, because I don't think we can have a strong economy with an environment that's in jeopardy. So the environment's actually my number one, concern about issues that we're facing as Canadians.
I think it's always a trade-off. I don't think you're ever going to be able to have one without the other. So if you want to have a stronger economy, there's going to have to be some concessions made on the environmental side, and vice versa. I don't see where it can be all one or the other.
Yeah. What do you say, sir?
I'm in for the strong economy. I think that's more important for us.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, environmental is important, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure people have employment, they have good housing opportunities, they have good educational opportunities, and we do live in a privileged country, but unless you have full employment and the economy strong, then all these other things you can't actually do anything about them.
So a strong economy, maybe will get you, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But in the end, the environmental piece, that's something that's going to last beyond that. So are we thinking short term, or are we thinking long term? What are the needs now versus what are the needs of the future? So I would say it's not either. It's kind of an in-between that still hasn't been figured out yet.
I mean, I do believe climate change is a really big deal. I do think that we do need to step up our game. I do think that we are on the right path, though, but I think we can be doing a lot more. But yeah, I do strongly believe in climate change, and I do think that in the next few years something needs to get done. Otherwise, the next 50 years will be like disastrous for sure.
It's always about the balance. I don't think that we should fully go into the environmental side because there's always the economic that's going to impact people, again, who are in poverty and the actual life that people live. But I also don't think you should sacrifice the environment to benefit the economy, but I think there's a balance that can be made between the two.
I don't think it's worth it because like the more you spend the health of the planet, like you won't be able to use it after to make money. So I don't know if it makes sense, but like I don't think it's worth it. They should take care of the planet, not their wallet.
Absolutely not. I think there's definitely much more that we need to do, especially climate change right now. It's no longer just a looming issue. It's a health risk. And we're seeing that in BC. We're seeing that with the fires, with the floods. No amount of, economic growth is worth losing millions of lives. I think Canada needs to do a better job.
I don't think a strong economy will be sustainable without a proper environment. But I also, we can't fix everything overnight right now. So, if people don't have money in their pockets, they can't buy responsibly.
Our government just thinks about money, which that's not worth it. Yeah.
As we move into a new year, many of us can reflect on 2021 for what it was and go forward. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians what obstacles they think might be in our way in the year to come. Our question:
what are the biggest challenges facing Canadians in 2022?
I think the biggest challenges Canadians will face in 2022 are keeping their spirits up and keeping hope alive. We unfortunately are inundated with negativity. We are in a difficult time with COVID. We are in a difficult time with the economy. Inflation is eroding our ability to purchase. But we always have to realize that on our worst day, we are living a pretty good life. And I think that we have to just maintain a positive attitude as best we can and to be there for each other and support each other.
I think jobs is going to be a big one. And just maybe even retraining people, because I think with the oil and gas now, not that big in Alberta, they'll have to do something else. They can't be doing the jobs they used to do, so retraining them. So jobs, I think, and just getting people back to normal.
Good government. We don't have it. I don't know what's going to happen to make us get it, but I think that the world economy is in trouble. I don't think that the governments understand it. I don't think they're looking into it. And without good economics, you don't have happiness.
Inflation's rise so high, like the cost of groceries. I mean, $33 for stewing beef and cattle is at $4 like a pound. It's ridiculous. I think that we're going to have a hard time heating over the winter, and the carbon tax isn't helping.
We cannot possibly afford to keep borrowing money. And I was quite horrified yesterday to read that in the last year we have not repaid any of our debt, only paid the interest on it. And that is not sustainable in the long term.
Well, I think the pandemic, we have to get through the pandemic. It's still having, look at the mask on my face. It's still having a significant effect on our lives. And I would really like to see us come out the other side of this major crisis.
The pandemic hit a lot of folks hard, and there's a lot of financial instability, and the housing market, I think, is a huge thing. As somebody who just purchased a house the last few months during what was a pretty stressful boom, I'd say. It's ridiculous, the amount of money I had to pay for just a moderate house. So I think something needs to be done in terms of that.
It's so expensive living here, and just for the housing, right? That's what I say. Housing is basic for living, and it might become a luxury. Yeah, and then I think we have to make a change for that, for sure.
Like the unfair treatment of Indigenous people, like it's getting really bad lately, and I think that's like definitely an obstacle for our people, because it's kind of like a touchy thing, but like, yeah, I think that's like the biggest current challenge right now.
We're from Calgary. We understand that 77,000 families dropped into poverty last year. So I think that the debt load due to COVID and then just the lack of jobs will become the biggest issue that Canadians will realize and have to face.
It will be the same for basically every country, but I feel like it's going to be the struggle of getting out of the pandemic after basically giving everybody the EI they needed or the funds they needed, basically. So basically being able to dig ourselves out of debt, basically, and bring it back to normal, hopefully.
I would say just in general, the world is really conflicted with the whole pandemic and just viewing people's choices, whether they're right or whether they're wrong and what they're doing. So I think the biggest challenge for Canadians is just to be able to be a friendly community again and be able to respect each other.
I think just getting through the whole COVID pandemic and how we're going to recover. Like, I work in the hospitality industry and it's been pretty tough lately. So hopefully 2022 we can get the country back up and running like it was before.
An issue that we face, not just in Canada but globally, is like navigating technology, stuff like privacy, like big companies selling our data, like this new platform it gives people, like with like cancel culture and stuff. I think that's an issue, and that's going to stir up lots of conflicts, and we're going to have to learn how to navigate that, maybe like put some laws into action.
There's a lot of divide right now within the world and within Canada as well, so I think overcoming that while still dealing with COVID is going to be the biggest obstacle that we have to face.
Well, I think one of them is, do they return to offices or do they still continue to work from home? I think that'll be a big one that business and their employees are going to have to figure out. So I think that's a challenge. Personally, as I'm a retired person, so my challenge is, can I just get back on a plane and go somewhere and enjoy myself? So I can't really speak from the business side, but we have children that are employed, obviously, and I think one of the big challenges is getting back into an office environment or staying where they are. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm really concerned living in Ottawa. We're predominantly a government town. We're downtown right now. This place is empty. Guess what? Because federal civil servants are working from home, and there is no plans to get them back anytime soon. So think about all the businesses that support the government workers. They're not, I mean, all these places are going under. They're empty. This is not a way to drive the economy. So find a way to bring people safely back to the office. That's our #1 challenge.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.